All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris, and I'll be doing the Beaks and Feathers lesson with you guys today. So we're going to learn about birds today. So I just want to say good morning to everyone. A nice little rainy Monday here at the Malcolm Knapp Research Forest. But before we start, I just want to make sure that you guys are following the guidelines before we start the lesson. So for the live stream today, I want all the participants' video and audio, those should be turned off. And if you or a caregiver have a question, you should be using the chat function, and one of the moderators will respond as soon as possible. So just make sure that you're using respectful, camp appropriate languages at all times if you are speaking through or with the moderator. So if you're interested with more UBC Camps lessons, there is going to be one tomorrow, so that is Tuesday, May 26th, and they're going to be doing citizen science and butterfly biology with the UBC Botanical Gardens and the David Suzuki Foundation. So if you guys are interested in that, you can check UBC Camps tomorrow. All right, so lastly, I just want you guys to have fun. So for this lesson, all you need is a pen and paper, and that's about it. So we're going to be talking about birds. So what we're going to learn about today is we're going to learn birds by identifying them by their wings. We're going to identify them by their beaks, and identify them by the song that they make. So the nice songs that you hear outside. So did you guys know that there are 488 different species of birds in BC? That is the most amount of birds that we have here in Canada. So BC has the most biodiversity of birds in all of Canada, which is really, really cool. So we have all of the forest dwelling birds. We have a bunch of shorebirds and seabirds and migratory birds, all of the birds. So we're going to be talking about those today. So before we start, I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. So we have lots of different birds here in BC, and I'm going to break it down into 3 different categories. So we have a lot of birds that live in the forest. So here at the Malcolm Knapp Research Forest, we have a lot of forest dwelling birds. So a lot of birds that live in the forest. What kind of birds would like to live in a forest? So we have a few examples here on your screen. So we have owls here in the forest, like great horned owls and barred owls. We have some woodpeckers in the forest. We have some warblers. We have some thrushes. We have nuthatches and wrens. So those are the types of birds that you will see in the forest. Now the next type of bird that you might see is birds that live near water. So that would include great blue herons, all types of species of ducks, like this wood duck or the mallard. We have kingfishers that love to live around water because they do eat fish. We have raptors like bald eagles and hawks that will live around the water because they also do like to eat fish. You'll see some loons, and you also see some sandpipers. So those are only a few examples of a majority or a lot of birds that like to live near water. And the next category of birds is birds that you might see the most often, which are birds that you will see in your backyard in the city. So those birds would be chickadees, so black-capped chickadees, chestnut-backed chickadees. We have robins. So robins are very, very common, American robins. You'll probably see some sparrows. You'll probably also see Steller's jays and northern flickers. And if you do have a hummingbird feeder, hummingbirds do like to live in the Vancouver area all year round. So usually they do migrate, but here in the Lower Mainland, they kind of tend to stick around just because we do have some flowers that stay for the majority of the year. So some of them don't migrate. All right, so we are going to first talk about some wings. So there are 5 different types of wings that a bird might have. And I'm going to talk about 4 of them. So the first one is this kind right here, and it is called an elliptical wing. So remember when I said that there are some birds that like to live in the forest? So most forest birds will have an elliptical wing. So this one right here. So an elliptical wing is kind of just a fancy word of saying a curved wing. So as you can see, this bird is a song sparrow, and you can see the shape of its wing is very curved. Now, why would it be curved that way? So most of these birds that have an elliptical wing live in the forest. And of course, in the forest, there are a lot of trees out there. So these birds have to be very good at maneuvering and swooping around trees very quickly. So if they hear a sound, or if they know that there's a predator around, they need to take off really fast and be able to go through the trees really easily. So some birds are just not meant to do that. So these birds are specifically designed, or their wings are specifically designed to go around trees and have a very fast takeoff. The next type of wing is a high-speed wing. And this wing you'll probably see on ducks. So if you've ever seen a duck fly before, or the next time you do see a duck fly, you should notice just how fast their wings are flapping. It's very fast, faster than you might think. So they have a high-speed wing. Other birds that might have a high-speed wing is swifts and terns and sandpipers and swallows. So the common theme here is that these birds usually spend their time around water. So the high speed part of it is really, it's designed so that they can flap their wings really fast to take off while they're in the water. So when you're kind of in the water, you'll have to spend a lot of energy to take off. So that's why they need a high speed wing, so that they can take off into the air and then maintain that high speed while they are flying. So that is the high speed wing. The next one we're going to talk about is the long soaring wing. So long soaring means that these birds will most likely travel long distances. So as pictured here, we have a western gull, but it also includes all the different types of gulls that we have here in BC. We also have birds that, so the other birds that will have this type of wing are albatrosses, gannets, and other seabirds. So the ones that do migrate from one place to the other, and that might be kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. So their wings are specifically designed to do a really long journey. So they have a long and narrow wing, as you can see on this picture. And that is designed to catch the wind currents that are near the water. So the wind is going to help them along their way, so they don't have to spend so much energy to get from one place to the other. And the last one I'm going to talk about is called a high lift wing. And you might recognize this type of bird if you've ever seen it before. It's called a turkey vulture. But this type of wing you'll also see on a bald eagle. You'll see them on hawks and on herons and storks. So these birds, as the title of it says high lift. So these birds circle high in the sky and they catch hot pockets of air with their wings. So their wings are really broad. So they're very long, but they're also very thick. So they are designed to catch those hot pockets of air so that they can fly way high up in the sky. And that's one of the ways that they do like to hunt for prey, just because they tend to have really good eyesight. So when they're circling high up in the sky, with their really good eyesight, they can see all the prey down below. So that is a way that their wings are designed specifically for hunting, which is really cool. And then there is another category, but that category is called a hovering wing. And that one is the only bird that's in that category is a hummingbird. And hovering wing is called a hovering wing because it looks like the hummingbirds are just hovering in the air. So that is the reason for the name of those wings. Okay, so now I want everybody to get up and we are going to do an experiment. So this experiment, we're gonna see how fast we can flap our human wings, okay? So what we're gonna test is that I want to see you guys flap your wings for 10 seconds and see if we can be faster than a crow. So a crow flaps their wings 20 times every 10 seconds. So that means that they flap their wings 2 times every second. Do you guys think you're faster than a crow? So the catch for this is that you cannot bend your elbows. So birds don't bend their elbows when they're flying. They don't go like this. So they have to stay nice and wide and they need to flap up and down like this. Do you guys think you can do it? All right, I'll do it with you. All right, can you see me? Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, that was 10 seconds, and I'm pretty sure I did that 14 times. It's much harder than it looks. So these birds are spending a lot of energy flapping their wings. It's probably a reason why humans don't have wings, right? That would be really weird. And if you guys want to do this again, you can always just check the video after this and then do the experiment all over again and maybe try to do it much faster and maybe you will be faster than a crow one day. Okay, so now we are going to talk about beaks. And there are a lot of different types of beaks out there. So beaks are designed for different purposes. So mostly for eating, of course. So some birds will have a different type of beak depending on what they want to eat or what they like to eat or what they evolved to eat. So the first one that I'm going to show you is from this beautiful bald eagle. And that one is called a tearing beak. So most raptor birds, so not just a bald eagle, so most hawks and merlins and all of those predatory birds will have a tearing beak. And that's because they do eat meat. So a tearing beak is meant to tear meat apart. So they have a beak specifically designed to help them eat. The next one is from this beautiful bird, and that is the turkey vulture. And we do have some here in the forest, and they're very beautiful when they fly. But however, they look a little funny, don't they? So they are actually a scavenging species. So they have a scavenging beak. So that means that they don't usually hunt the prey. They will just find them already dead in the forest, and then that's how they eat it. So they usually don't go ahead and kill their prey. And then we have a generalist beak, and this is a crow. And a generalist beak means that they eat a lot of different things. So that could be insects, they could eat fruit, they could eat trash if they wanted to, they could eat meat. So they are specifically designed to have a multi-functioning beak. So it's a beak that's good for most of the food that's out there. So crows will have those, ravens, and jays as well. So stellar jays. The next type of beak is called a chiseling beak, and this is a pileated woodpecker. So most or all the woodpeckers have a chiseling beak, and that is to make holes into the trees to find some insects. So that's why they have a chiseling beak. Their beak is nice and strong so that they can put all those holes in those trees. Imagine if you had to put a bunch of holes in trees, I'm sure you'd get really, really dizzy. So they have a really strong beak to help their head not get so dizzy when they peck all those holes in there, because that would get really hard. So these guys like to eat insects. Next, we have a probing beak, and these are mostly from shorebirds. So on the shore, there's usually a lot of rocks and lots of sand. And in between those rocks and sand, pebbles, there's usually little creatures. So these birds will eat insects and they'll eat small crustaceans. So things like shrimp and crabs and smaller animals. And then next we have what we call a scooping beak. And the only bird that has this beak is the pelican. And it is like this picture is, what this picture is showing you, they scoop up the fish right into their mouth. So their beak is specially designed to help them eat fish completely whole, which is completely crazy. And then the next one is called the aerial fishing beak. And this is a belted kingfisher. And they're really small birds, but they have a very, very large beak. So just like their name, kingfisher, they have a beak that helps them eat fish. So they like to stand on branches on top of a pond or near a river or maybe a lake, and they'll just wait for the fish to come by. And then when they see it, they will plummet down and strike them with their beak. So that's what their beak is good for. And then the next one is called pursuit fishing beak. So these are for birds like this merganser or ducks. So most of the birds that like to swim in the water, so loons and grebes as well. And as you can tell from this picture, I don't know if you can see it very well. It kind of looks like it has really small teeth in its beak. So most birds don't have that, and that is to help them catch the fish when they're swimming. So they have serrated teeth on their beak. So that's pretty cool. And then we have nectar feeding beaks. So these guys are only for hummingbirds, and they like to eat the nectar from flowering plants. And then we also have seed-eating beaks. So most of these beaks will be nice and thick, and that is to crack the seeds open so that they can eat them. So most seeds will have kind of like a shell on the outside, and they'll have to kind of crack through it to eat the seed on the inside. So that's what those are good for. And then we have insect-eating beaks. And then those would be from warblers or flycatchers and chickadees and sparrows and wrens. So they will have a small and pointy type of beak. And these birds generally do eat insects. And I believe this is the last one. And this one is called a striking beak. So almost like the kingfisher, which had an aerial fishing beak, but obviously the great blue heron is much bigger than the kingfisher. And the blue herons don't usually stand on a tree or a branch to fish, just because they're so large and it would scare the fish away before they got to the water. So if you've ever seen a heron before, they're usually very still around a pond or a lake or a river, and they'll stand still for a really long time just to make sure that they can catch that fish that's in the water. So they have a striking beak. So once they do see a fish, they'll be super fast and they'll just strike their beak right in the water and hopefully catch a fish. Okay, so now we are going to do another small-ish experiment, and it's okay if you don't have the equipment for it right now. You can always do it later. But for this one, we are going to measure ourselves. So we are going to see what kind of wingspan we have. So how to measure a wingspan. So you'll have to have some kind of tape measure at home. So I have this really big one because we work in the forest and we have some forestry stuff in here. That's the smallest one I could find. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna find a tape measure and you're gonna ask a parent or a guardian to help you. And what you're gonna do is you are going to measure yourself from one end to the other, like this. So your wingspan is from the tip of your hand to the other tip of your fingers. That is the wingspan. So once you measured yourself, I'm going to show you some slides and you can figure out what kind of bird you would be if you had that wingspan as a bird. So I think I have a wingspan of 180 centimeters, which I think is equivalent to a great blue heron. So I'm pretty tall, which means that I will have a larger wingspan and I will resemble a larger bird. So I will show you the slides and you can see which bird you would be. All right, so if your wingspan is 75 centimeters, you would be a wood duck. And if it's 85 centimeters, you'd be a peregrine falcon, which is the fastest bird on earth. If your wingspan is 90 centimeters, you would be a mallard, which is a duck. And if your wingspan is 100 centimeters, you'd be a northwestern crow. If your wingspan is 110 centimeters, so that's 1.1 meters, you would be a barred owl. If your wingspan is 120 centimeters, so 1.2 meter, you'd be a red-tailed hawk. If your wingspan is 130 centimeters, which is 1.3 meters, you'd be a common loon. If your wingspan is 135 centimeters, you would be a western gull. If you have a wingspan of 140 centimeters, you would be a great horned owl. And if you have a wingspan of 150 centimeters, you would be a common raven. If you have a wingspan of 170 centimeters, you would be a Canada goose. And if your wingspan is 180 centimeters, you would be a great blue heron, like me. And last but not least, if you are this tall, and if your wingspan is this wide, if your wingspan is 190 centimeters, you would be a bald eagle. All right. So for the last portion of this lesson, we are going to listen to some bird sounds. So I will play a bird sound and there will be a sonogram to help you figure out which bird made that sound. So I will give you 3 options. And you will have to figure out which one of those three birds makes that sound outside. So if you do have a pen and paper, this would be the time to use it. So there is going to be 6 sounds. So you can put your paper 1 to 6 if you want. And I will play some sounds. And you will have to say if it's bird A, B, or C. Are you guys ready? Okay, so here is bird number 1. So your options are a black-capped chickadee, a common loon, or a European starling. Listen carefully. All right, so who made that sound? Was it A, a black-capped chickadee, B, a common loon, or C, a European starling? All right, we will go on to bird number 2. All right, so that was bird number 2. Was that an American robin? Was that a mallard? Or was that a Steller's jay? All right, let's go to bird number 3. So you have the option of a great horned owl, a downy woodpecker, or a western gull. All right, so which bird was that one? A, B, or C? All right, so we're going to go on to bird number 4. All right, let's listen carefully. So was that sound a Suti grouse? Was it a song sparrow? Or was that a great blue heron? All right, on to bird number 5. So your options for this one are a red-tailed hawk, a turkey vulture, or a bald eagle. All right, let's listen carefully. All right. So what was your answer? Bird A, bird B, or bird C? And the last bird that we are going to do, here are your options. It is either a northern flicker, a wood duck, or a western crow. Let's listen carefully. All right. So which bird made that sound? A, B, or C? Okay, so if you wrote it on your piece of paper, I will go over the answers. So bird number 1 was a black-capped chickadee. Bird number 2 was a Steller's jay. Bird number 3 was a great horned owl. Bird number 4 was a song sparrow. Bird number 5, which probably was a little tricky, was a red-tailed hawk and not a bald eagle. And bird number 6 was the red-shafted northern flicker. So all of these birds, some of them might be common to you. Sometimes you'll hear them out in your backyard. Some of them you'll just hear in the forest. So the ones you might hear in the forest are the great horned owl and the red-tailed hawk. But the ones that you should probably hear around your house, the chickadee, you'll most likely hear it. The Steller's jay, you'll hear it. The sparrows, maybe not a song sparrow, but sparrows in general, and northern flickers. So those are the birds that we talked about today. All right. So that was the majority of our lesson. I hope you guys learned a little bit today. So we talked about wings and the different types of wings. We talked about beaks and also songs. But before we leave, I did forget to show you some cool samples that I have with me. I was supposed to show these while we were doing the beaks, but I wanted to show you these really cool samples of birds that I have. So most of these were donated by UBC. And this guy right here is a Cooper's hawk. So it is a raptor bird. So I wanted to show you this bird because of the beak that it has. So if you remember, most raptors will have what we call a tearing beak, and it'll have a hooked beak. So it'll be curved downwards like this. And that again is to tear the meat apart while they hunt. So this guy is a Cooper's hawk. It's one of the smaller raptor birds that we have. And the next bird I wanted to show you is this guy here. And this is a Steller's jay with the beautiful blue colors. And I wanted to show you the beak. So jays in general are in the same family as ravens and crows. And if you remember, those had generalist beaks. So they had a thicker beak that will eat anything that is out there that they want. So that could be insects, that could be fruit, that could be meat, it could be anything. So these birds have a generalist beak. And the last one I'm going to show you is a common bird that you'll probably see in your backyard as well. And this one is called a European starling. And starlings mostly eat insects. So remember, insects had very pointy beaks, but sometimes it does eat seeds. So it likes to eat insects first. So it likes that one the most. But it will also eat seeds sometimes. But this, as you can see, very pointy beak to get those small insects. And European starlings are from Europe, so they're not really supposed to be here. They are considered pests to some, but I do find them very beautiful. They have some really beautiful colors in their feathers, like purple and green. All right, so I think I covered everything for today. So I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow is the next session for UBC Camps Play and Learn. So tomorrow's session is at 3:30 p.m. and that'll be for citizen science and butterfly biology with UBC Botanical Gardens and the David Suzuki Foundation, and those are for ages 9 to 12. So for tomorrow, for that one, you'll learn to observe and identify and draw common butterflies that you will see in the Metro Vancouver area. So that sounds really fun. So if you're interested, tomorrow at 3:30. All right, that's everything for me today. I am signing off from the Malcolm Knapp Research Forest. I hope you learned something today. Bye.